Warning, the Platinum Conversations podcast may contain adult language and content, and guests may appear on the show under an alias to protect their identity. Listener discretion is advised. On episode 12 of Platinum Conversations, I'm joined by Chrissy, who educates me on why women are attracted to toxic men. Platinum Conversations is a podcast where we tackle men's common dating and relationship challenges. Each episode, which will release on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, is to inspire men to date smarter and foster fulfilling relationships. I'm your host, Michael Buckner, president of dating agency Platinum Ruby Entertainment, and I'll be taking this journey with you. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain the ways. First of all, it's free. Second, there's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need from a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. In our conversation segment, I'm joined by Chrissy, who will educate me on why women are attracted to toxic men. Chrissy, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Well, Chrissy, you reached out to me and you had an issue that I talk about with my friends all the time, and that is why are they attracted to toxic men? And that's something that, I've just been baffled by. I want to know the answer. So I think you'd be the perfect person for me to ask this to you, for you to educate me. Why is that?
Well, in my opinion, why women attract toxic men, and, obviously this also stems from personal experiences too, but I definitely think it also depends on, one, your definition of what you consider toxic, whether it's being someone who's considered an F-boy, someone who's kind of manipulating you or taking advantage of you in some sort of way. And then it also depends on, I guess, where you are in your life. For instance, if you just broke up with someone, you were in a long-term relationship, and you're, the next person that comes along, they might not be exactly the most ideal person for you, but at that moment and at that time, you're there's a void that needs to be filled, so I definitely think it's stems and it's based on need, some type of, I would say just an empty feeling within you. So I was actually talking about this with a friend of mine, and she actually kind of brought something to my attention that I didn't realize before as far as men goes. And she says that there are two types of men. So she says that there are beta males and alpha males, right? So
yes, right.
A beta male is basically someone who is kind of head over heels for you. They're somewhat of a provider for you. They'll give you anything that you require. They're almost in an obsessive way. They're very, very loving to women, and in hindsight, a lot of women would think that this is a good thing, having a guy who's completely devoted to you. But sometimes it comes from an over emotional state where this guy is he's so obsessed with you, and it almost becomes what's the word I'm looking for, possessive. So it's they're very emotional, which can lead to a toxic relationship because, there's this guy and he is, giving you these things and he's providing for you whatever you need. So there's a codependency on his end. And even if you don't feel as strongly, in the long run, you've already delved too deep into it to where the person could be mentally impacted if you were to leave this person. So that's like one form of being in a toxic relationship, you know, like kind of not knowing where to say no or walk away when someone is just becoming a little bit too much in your life. Definitely. And then it gets to a point where it's like, okay, well, you know, like especially for women that are kind of, they come from broken homes, they don't really have anything. So like this person, he's giving you the attention that you need. And it's also kind of a reflective characteristic of yourself, because some women, you know, they come from broken homes where their families or their fathers, you know, they were kind of controlling. So when they get into these relationships, you know, it kind of reflects that, like someone's there to take care of you, someone's there to love you, like, you know, it's to fill what you were lacking.
And
then,
so now, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. No, go ahead.
No, you were about to say something.
Yeah, well, then I'm going to touch on what is known as an alpha male. So beta males are kind of like codependent, you know, emotional, and then alpha males are the people who are very headstrong, you know, they do what they want, they don't answer to anyone, they're on their own. These men, they own their purpose. You know, this is what you would consider like an F-boy, you know, someone who's kind of, you know, they're not exactly controlling, but it's like it's like they don't need you. You know, there's someone that they're the type of person that really does not depend on you for anything. You know, you in turn depend on them, you know, whether it's for love or to be sexually satisfied, something like that. And in turn, they can see that in you, and that's how a lot of women end up being taken advantage of. You know, they end up being manipulated because it's like, I know that this woman, she'll do anything for me. I could be texting 4 or 5 different girls, and, you know, she's in the kitchen cooking me breakfast. You know, so I know that no matter what, she's never going to leave because, you know, she needs something from me, whether it's love, whether it's affection, just someone by your side, monetary value, if you need money, anything. It all depends on what you need. And there comes a point where the woman is unable to just like relinquish herself from that.
So do you consider an alpha male to be potentially a toxic element in a relationship if a woman is dating a alpha male?
I definitely think so. I wouldn't say like all. There are men who are very headstrong, but it's like it's the type of alpha that you're attracting. You know, it's not the kind where it's like, okay, they got all their stuff together in life, like, you know, they're good to go, and they're just looking for a companion, you know, someone to have a future with. This is someone who like kind of they get off on like manipulating people, and they know that they can have that advantage. So, you know, they prey on kind of weak-minded women that they know that they can manipulate. So I definitely feel as though like in the sense of manipulation, an alpha male, definitely. And then in the sense of, you know, someone like, you know, someone you're scared to leave because of them doing harm to themselves, a beta.
So in your experience, what are the type of men that you and your friends are inclined to be attracted to on a regular basis?
Definitely alpha males. Personally, I've always been someone who kind of like lives for themselves, you know, and I always try to find someone to match my energy. I definitely am not the type of person to rely on anyone for the things I need in my life. So if I can find someone who can kind of, you know, supplement what I bring to my own life, you know, just basically being independent, you know, just being very, I guess, like sexually inclined and just doing your own thing, not answering to anyone. I definitely agree heavily with that mindset. But there comes a point, like in my own experience, there have been men where it's like, you know, they're just so, it's like almost alluring, you know, and it's like the idea of being with that person and, you know, they're so headstrong. Like it's an easy way to become manipulated, especially if there's someone that, you know, they're really not that into you, and they really don't want to give and devote that time to you. So then it turns into like in my mind, at least, it definitely turns into something like, I have to have this person, like, you know, like, why don't they want me? Like, why am I not enough for this person? Like, maybe if I change this, change the way I look, change my hair, you know, this headstrong person will see that I can match their life and that I can bring something to the table as well. So it's like, I can't leave. At that point, I can't leave. I have to show this person, no matter what, you know, even if he is like seeking other people, that I'm going to just continue and see maybe if I can change him, which is terrible, because it's like you need that person, you know, that person brought something into your life that you didn't like originally have. So it's like, there's no way you want to let that go. Like you just need it in your life.
You use the word manipulation or manipulate numerous times or numerous occasions while you were discussing the differences or describing what is an alpha man versus a beta male. Why do you use the word manipulate?
I think just because in my past, I was in a toxic relationship and I was being manipulated heavily in that relationship, where I was being taken advantage of, you know, financially, emotionally, and it got to the point where I was so, I guess, in love with that person, and I could have sworn I saw a future because of all of our good times, that I looked past the cons. You know, I looked more towards the pros, and I didn't really see the negatives. The fact that, you know, he knew that I was very, very, you know, I was just overwhelmed with affection for him. And he knew that he could, you know, twist that system. You know, he could like kind of twist my mind a little bit and, you know, get me to kind of do whatever he felt that he needed, you know, whether it was that's like a whole story in itself for, I guess, another time. But definitely, like, for my toxic relationship, manipulation was the basis of it, because, you know, whether it was for money or for just like personal favors, I definitely didn't reap much benefit from that relationship. It was just all one-sided. It was just me doing what I needed for him because I thought that I was in love, and I didn't take the time to get to know this person. And that happens a lot. You know, you really don't take your time to get to know someone. Some women, they feel like they're on a ticking time bomb, so they just rush into whatever feels right at the time, even though, you know, there comes a certain point in time where it's almost like a checkpoint. That first red flag shows up, and you are already just you're just in it. You're already in it, and you're already feeling, you know, like the love and the satisfaction of being in this relationship, that you just kind of ignore that red flag, no matter how large or minuscule it might be.
Now, listeners to this podcast will be familiar with what I'm about to say. You brought up the fact that, you know, those red flags and you don't get to know the person. And, you know, I have what's called a 90-day rule. It's not 90 days without sex. It's 90 days before getting into a significant or committed relationship with somebody else. And 90 days is roughly, you know, 2 months to 3 months. And the reason why that is that everyone is on their best behavior for at least the first 2 months of any type of relationship.
Definitely.
Any type. It could be a business relationship, a personal relationship, a friendship, a romantic relationship, a sexual relationship. We're always trying to be on our best behavior during the first, 1 to 2 months. And then, you know, unless you're a psychopath, you know, you're going to show your true nature after the first 45 to 60 days. But it's been my experience. I'm sorry?
Because you get comfortable.
Correct. Right. And you lift over your head the mask that you've been wearing for the first 1 to 2 months. It's been my experience that women, the modern woman, the younger generation, the women in their 20s and 30s, and this again, very, very general, women in that generation do not know how to date. And this is based on me just talking to a lot of women, because most of my women in my legal practice are women in the service industry. So in their early 20s and 30s. And their idea of dating is going on a date with one guy. If they like the guy, then they're actually quote unquote dating. So they're already in a committed relationship already.
Right.
To me, dating is you go out with several people. I'm not saying having sex, but go out, go to a movie, go to dinner, get drinks, hang out, learn about each other. And then once you realize, hey, this person, I like this person, I want to take this further, then you can whittle it down. And I had an earlier podcast episode where I equated to going in and shopping for clothes. And when you shop for clothes, you don't go and pick out the first thing that you see and immediately go and purchase it, unless you know your size. And even then, you always want to go and try it out. Try it on in the dressing room. See where it fits, because although you could be a certain size in one particular article of clothing, it may not match another article of clothing. But we, in this modern society, we want this instant gratification. So we see what we want on the rack, grab it, go purchase it, take it home, and then when we take it home, oh, it doesn't fit. Oh, I don't like it. We're already home. So now, well, should I take it back to the store? And most people don't take it back to the store.
Yeah, they find a way to make it fit.
I'm sorry, they what?
They'll find a way to make it fit.
Correct. And so that's what we do with, really, women do it with men and men do it with women. And we'll try to make it fit. And so when you say manipulation, again, I've been in relationships where I've been manipulated. I've been the alpha man, a male in some relationships, and I've been the beta. And I will acknowledge that as part of my growth as a man, as I'm trying to become a better person in relationships. And when I've been the beta, I have been manipulated, and I can acknowledge that. So now, when I approach situations, I'm not going to be manipulated. I'm going to be the alpha. And and one thing is, I want to broach this with you. One thing that you talked about alpha and beta, and one thing that I have observed recently is with women is, as a man, if I take sex off the table, and what I mean by that is, I don't care whether or not I don't care about whether or not you're going to try to use your sexual prowess against me. Once I take that off the table, then you as a woman lose a lot of your power and influence over me. What do you think about that?
So what you're saying is, once you take sex off the table, you feel like women are at a disadvantage.
No, well, we begin to equalize our power in the relationship. For example, let me give you an example. You talked about this, alluded to this earlier when we talked about betas. That betas, codependent, or betas are really, they're like starving, and so they're trying desperately to go after that woman, and women then are able to use whatever means you guys use in order to enthrall the man and get things out of the man, whether it be money and attention or dinners or gifts or whatever. What I have learned is that if a woman is trying to get something out of me, and she's trying to use her sexual prowess or sex in general in order to get something out of me, and I just say, well, I don't care. That does not interest me. Then a lot of women don't know how to handle that, because they're used to men doing whatever they need to do in order to get sex. But if you take that off the table, then what else do you have? Unless you are truly a strong, independent, educated woman, and you can bring other things to the table. If you don't have that, then what else do you have?
Exactly, honestly. Because that is that is honestly, it's like a major part of life. It's like, especially when it comes to social media, like sex sells. Women know that there's just so many different outlets now, you know, to kind of like, I guess, open up your sexuality and just kind of like show it off to the world, whether it's, you know, like Instagram, you know, you're taking pictures in bikinis, or, you know, like you have an OnlyFans, which I think is absolutely crazy. But yes, women definitely do use sex to their advantage. So the minute you do take it off the table, you know, it kind of, and the same thing, you know, vice versa, men to women and women to men, you kind of leave like an open space. It's like, okay, we're going to just remove this, right? So what do we have left? Like what other forms of substance can you provide? You know, we're going to take this bread off the table. So I just need to see where the meat and the potatoes is. You know, I need some vegetables. You know, what other things can you bring to the table? What can you provide me, as opposed to, you know, just sexual gratification? You know, and once you do take that out of the picture, I think it would help women a lot as far as finding the right type of person and not falling into a toxic relationship. Because a lot of guys like, you know, fuckboys, I would say, excuse my language if I can't, you know, curse over the recording, but a lot of them, you know, they're pretty good in bed. That's why, you know, that's what I feel kind of like is the start of a toxic relationship, because it's like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I've never had this experience before, and it's like, it feels amazing, you know, like, wow, like this is the best I've ever had. So like once that is involved, you know, it's almost like you're kind of like chained to that person. You know, that chemical in your brain has gone off, and, you know, you're attached in some sort of sense. And you're like, well, if I leave now, like who else is going to, you know, be able to satisfy me to that extent? No one. You know, you just automatically think no one, because, you know, you've already formed that attachment. So once you do take that off the table, it leaves more leeway to understanding someone, you know, who they are inside, their morals, their values. Like, do they fall in line with yours? You know, is this someone that is, are they responsible? Can they, you know, do they see themselves, you know, as like a father figure? Or is this woman, you know, is she here to take advantage of me, or is she here to, you know, kind of make me better? You know, not necessarily trying to fan herself all over me, fall all over me, and, you know, get me to do whatever she wants. But, you know, can we form a bond that will help us create a foundation for our future?
Well, Chrissy, you know, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you on this particular issue. And I'm sure, you know, we can talk, you know, for hours about alphas and betas and how that interaction with each other can build a toxic relationship if we're not too careful, or if we balance it off or find the right person, not have such a toxic relationship. So I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule and share some of your thoughts on toxic relationships.
No problem. Thanks for having me. This was great and fun, and, you know, hopefully we can talk again soon.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Platinum Conversations. And I appreciate Chrissy for joining us as today's guest. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Anchor, Spotify, and other podcast platforms, as well as on YouTube, so you never miss an episode. Finally, visit me on the Platinum Ruby Entertainment website at platinumruby.com for dating and matchmaking services. Until next time.